Hey friends, and welcome back, and today we're talking about Legendborn, the first book in a series by author Tracy Deonn. This new young adult urban fantasy has a unique twist as it's taking place in a college environment, and it has a retelling of the Arthurian legend. In this book, we're following the exploits of young black teenage girl Bree Matthews, who through her smarts has gotten herself into the early college program at the University of Northern Carolina in Chapel Hill. And she's recently grieving the death of her mother. And for a 16-year-old girl, that's a pretty heavy thing to be going through. And we follow her through her grief story and how she has to deal with all the anger and the emotions that go along with losing someone, and especially as a 16-year-old girl who is now in a new environment, away from her family, away from her dad, and all the things that go along with that emotional turmoil that she would be going through. So that's very well written in this by Tracy Deonn, and she is pulling from personal experience, is my understanding, so that she has gone through some of the same things that Bree is going through in this book when it comes to those emotions. So she has written that very well into this. On top of that, then we throw into, once she gets to university, she starts to have some conflict with her best friend who came to the university with her. That dynamic, new environment, new friends, new people, and you start to separate a little bit. But they're roommates, they're best friends, and they probably always will be. But there is that little bit of conflict dynamic that goes through the book that's in there as well. Also, when you throw in on top of that, she discovers magic. So within this book, there are two types of magic. There is the one that we follow, the order, or the Arthurian order. Wow, that's hard to say. But basically, the order is a group of students throughout the university and other people that are direct descendants of the Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And they defend humanity against demons. And Bree gets sucked into their environment. I don't want to tell you too much of the story because I want to keep this as spoiler free as possible, but she gets sucked into their environment, and she meets Nick, one of her love interests. There's a potential love triangle in this novel, and it's an interesting story there. She also discovers through meeting some people that may have known her mother when her mother was at the same university. She discovers there's another form of magic that follows her family line. Bree never knew her grandmother. She only knew her mother. She doesn't know anything about her descendants, but through this discovery of her family magic, which is called Rootcraft, she discovers that there is some history there as well that takes her down a path. Now, there are some things in this book that may be some triggers for some people. There's things like slavery. There is the Black in the South environment. Bree has to deal with a lot of microaggressions when it comes to she's in a university environment where there's not a lot of people that look like her. She goes to some gatherings where, for one instance, she's thought of as the help. This book is very much about a young black girl, which is awesome. You couldn't take a white character and throw her into this role as Bree and the book work. It would completely fall apart. And I really, really enjoy that. I think the fact that story is around her culture, her environment, I think it's awesome, and it's very poignant in our world today. So I really enjoyed that part of this book. But like I said, there are some triggers in there. There's the slavery aspect. There is some sexual assault, rape references in there. There's nothing graphic, but they just refer to it. So I wanted to make sure to point that out as well. It's nothing too prevalent, it's not heavy, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in there as well. There is some dynamics when it comes to LGBTQ in here. There is some, like for example, her roommate is gay, and there are other characters as well that are representative of that community. This is not a hard book to read. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty fast paced right from the get-go. I think I read it in 2 days, maybe a little bit more. It's roughly about 500 pages. It's not a hard book to read. The story is really good. It's captivating. It keeps you interested throughout. There is a large cast of characters it centers around a main little group, but there are other characters that you get to know, you get interested in. There is some death in this book outside of the storyline that surrounds Bree's mother's death, so be prepared for that. And that large cast of characters is written in really well as well. In the book, there's a bit of a tense relationship between Bree and her dad. Obviously, her dad is going through a similar grief that Bree is with the loss of Bree's mother, his wife, and there's also the tension of his 16-year-old teenage daughter away at a university, his black daughter at a predominantly white university. Some reviews I've seen of this book, they called it long. I don't really call it a long book at all. I mean, considering that the book I read before this was about 700 pages, and this is 5. This could have, to me, this actually could have been longer. They could have fleshed out some of the characters a bit more and just made them a bit fuller. Alice, maybe give her a little bit more background. However, I did feel that the Alice character and the relationship with Bree felt real, so that was good. I just, maybe there's a little more story to Alice. Maybe we'll get that in the next book. Speaking of the next book comes out later this year. I believe it's November, and that will be, I'm very much looking forward to that. So again, this is basically a retelling of the Arthurian legend, and that goes heavily throughout the book. It's interesting how Tracy Deonn has brought that into this novel, and I like how she did it. I like how she brought the storyline so that these are the descendants of the original Arthurian characters, and how their powers are passed down from a descendant to descendant. And it's very interesting how she does it in this book, and I really like that. I also like the other magic system that she brings up in this as well. I absolutely love this cover. The colors are fantastic. It looks so good on a shelf, and I commend her for that. The next cover for this also looks just as good. Again, this is considered a young adult book. It's an easy read. There are some heavy subjects in it, which I think are handled very well by Tracy Deonn. It's an urban fantasy. Again, like I said, it takes place at a modern university in today's day and age, so that the magic is intermingled within that. So I definitely recommend this. Again, I'm looking forward to the next book in November. I would highly encourage you to read it if you like urban fantasy and tales of Arthurian legend and things like that. Definitely pick it up. Legendborn is a good book. I look forward to the next book. And if you have read this book, I'd love to hear what you thought of it, comments on things I've said today, and hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you want to hear more book reviews. And come back next time, and until then, I will see you then.